catalyst and the cup, the catalyst and the cup.
Advika. I've been observing your intake for exactly 7 minutes. That caramel-topped concoction in your hand isn't a beverage, it is a glycemic event. Seriously, how are you even processing information right now?
It's called molecular joy, Dhruv. You should try it sometime. It pairs perfectly with the new stack of books I just rescued from Blossoms. Unlike that black battery acid you're nursing, it looks chemically aggressive.
It's a stable baseline, pure efficiency. But regarding your rescue mission, buying paper isn't the same as absorbing data. You're accumulating dead wood faster than your brain can process the variables. That bookstore is a literal cognitive hack for you.
Which is exactly why we're talking about James Clear today. He has a fix for my clutter logic. You're listening to Beyond the Book, from the Catalyst and the Cup. Today we're auditing atomic habits.
Let's look at the data. We'll be extracting core mechanics, stress testing them for Indian reality, and anchoring the system in cultural logic. Let's get into the beans.
So to truly understand the foundation of this entire methodology, we have to start by entirely dismantling what I call the montage myth.
The montage myth.
Right. We have all been conditioned by cinema and pop culture to believe that human transformation requires this massive, defining moment of action. We picture a singular, heroic leap of faith. But the origin story behind this framework is not a montage.
No, it is not.
It is rooted in profound, life-altering physical trauma. James Clear did not develop this system because he wanted to, optimize a corporate morning routine. He developed it because he needed a system to simply survive.
The actual mechanism of his injury is absolutely crucial to understand here. During a high school game, a baseball bat slipped from a player's hands and smashed directly into his face.
Just devastating.
The impact caused multiple severe skull fractures. It required an immediate medically induced coma just to stabilize his brain function. He was instantly stripped of all personal autonomy, stripped all the way down to basic motor functions.
And that reality is the absolute core of his argument. When you're waking up in a hospital bed from a medically induced coma, you cannot take massive action.
Right. It is biologically impossible.
Precisely. The only path forward, the only way to recover is atomic. An atomic habit is an extremely small amount of a thing. It is the single, irreducible unit of a much larger system. He had to rely on microscopic changes just to learn how to walk again.
Which introduces the foundational math of this entire system. We're talking about the power of compounding, but we're not talking about financial compounding. This is biological interest.
Biological interest. I like that framing.
If you calculate the trajectory of getting merely 1% better each day, for a single year, the math becomes undeniable. 1.01 to the power of 365 results in a 37.78 times improvement. Let that sink in.
It is staggering.
A nearly 38 times magnification of your current state derived entirely from changes so microscopic they feel completely irrelevant on a random Tuesday.
And yet most people struggle to imply this because of how society teaches us to view goals. We worship at the altar of the end result.
Because we fail to realize that goals are entirely neutral? This is a severe disruption to traditional motivational rhetoric.
Oh, absolutely.
I want you, the listener, to visualize any highly competitive environment. Look at the Olympic Games. Every single sprinter lining up on that track has the exact same goal. They all want to win the gold medal. The winner and the loser share completely identical intentions.
So the goal itself cannot possibly be the differentiator.
Correct. The goal is neutral. The only variable that separates the winner who stands on the podium from the loser who goes home is the underlying infrastructure they built to get there.
Which brings us to the central mantra of the entire framework, a rule you must internalize. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Yes.
Your outcomes are simply lagging measures of your daily routines. Your financial wealth is merely a lagging measure of your daily spending habits.
To successfully build those systems, we first have to understand the neurological circuitry that governs human behavior. Think of it as a behavior application programming interface, the code that runs your brain.
The 4 steps.
Right. Cue, craving, response, and reward. The critical failure point for most people happens right between the cue and the response. Neurobiology clearly shows us that the dopamine spike, that intense feeling of craving, actually occurs before the habit is ever performed.
Before you even do the thing.
Think about your phone vibrating on the table. The anticipation of the message, the spike of dopamine, hits you before you even touch the screen. The anticipation of the reward is the engine that forces your brain into action.
And we can directly mirror that biological loop with the 4 laws of behavior change. If you want to successfully build a new habit, you must manipulate this loop. First, you must make the cue obvious.
Leave your running shoes directly in front of the door.
Second, you must make the craving attractive. Pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. Third, you must make the response easy. Reduce the number of steps required to start. And fourth, you must make the reward satisfying.
This brings us to the most uncomfortable argument of the book, the battle of environment versus willpower. Because willpower is not a strategy. Willpower is simply a system leak.
We see this mechanism perfectly illustrated in the 1971 Vietnam War heroin study.
A vital piece of data.
Imagine the jungles of Vietnam during the war. It was a high-stress, terrifying environment, and a massive percentage of soldiers became severely addicted to heroin. The chemical hook of heroin is legendary.
It rewires the brain immediately.
But researchers found something that completely shattered conventional addiction logic. When those soldiers finally returned home to their families, 90% of them stopped their addiction overnight. 90%.
They stopped because the environment operated as the base code for their behavior. The combat zone provided continuous high-stress visual cues. The home environment, thousands of miles away, provided zero cues.
The chemical hook was completely overridden by a shift in physical location.
We see this exact same mechanism in civilian life with the Massachusetts General Hospital cafeteria study. Researchers increased the sale of bottled water by 25.8% simply by moving the physical location of the water bottles to eye level, replacing the soda.
Purely structural geometry.
There was no marketing, no willpower required.
This leads to the overarching mechanism of the methodology: identity votes. True, lasting behavior change is not about achieving a specific temporary outcome. It is about becoming a completely different type of person.
You are fundamentally rewiring your personal circuitry.
Yes, every single action you take, no matter how small, is a literal vote for the identity you wish to hold. You are not writing a book, you are becoming a writer. Mechanics extracted, shifting from the beans to the cup.
We have established the raw logic of the framework. Now we must apply it to reality. Because reality is rarely a pristine, controlled laboratory.
And here's where I have to raise a critical sensory question for our demographic. The core argument relies heavily on redesigning your physical environment. Make good habits obvious, make bad habits invisible. But how do we apply these pristine laws in extremely high-friction environments?
High friction is the default.
Right. Let us visualize a typical urban Indian reality. You are spending 2 hours every single day navigating Bangalore traffic. You finally return to a loud, multi-generational joint family household. Local chaos is not an interruption. It is the default state of your existence.
It is the baseline.
So how do we design an environment when we don't even have a private room?
You are identifying a massive blind spot. The book suggests strategies like physically moving your television into a closet to avoid the temptation of watching it. Now, that is a brilliant solution if you live entirely alone in a spacious apartment.
Which most of us do not.
It assumes a very high level of spatial autonomy. In a multi-generational living space, the television is not your personal property. It's communal infrastructure. It is likely broadcasting evening news at maximum volume in the absolute center of the house.
You cannot simply unplug communal property and hide it in a wardrobe.
It requires a completely different approach to managing friction. In a shared space, friction is deeply social. You are not just fighting your own internal laziness, you are constantly negotiating your personal habits with the daily rhythms of 4 other adults. Friction acknowledged, transitioning from the cup to the stress test.
If the model struggles that heavily with basic social friction, we need to rigorously examine its underlying assumptions.
I will take the critique a step further. The environment design doctrine here operates on Western privilege. It assumes a highly predictable, high-control environment. It completely fails to address how a behavioral system survives in a high-volatility, low-control Indian household.
Which is exactly why the original manual requires a massive refactor for our current 2026 landscape. We're moving away from manual habit tracking and shifting toward agentic habit governance.
The AI layer.
Yes. We are seeing the rise of what developers call vibe coding, AI systems that proactively adapt your digital and smart home cues based on your behavioral philosophy. Think of it as a personal GitHub repository, but for your physical space. A master README file that your smart home executes.
I would refactor vibe coding into a much clearer term: ambient stimuli. Let us strip away the buzzwords. It is simply an invisible digital butler. Instead of you manually hiding your phone, your AI agent utilizes thermal sensors and biometric dashboards to dynamically schedule your routines.
It automates the environment.
If the system detects your energy crashing at 4 in the afternoon, it autonomously dims the lights and blocks digital noise to enforce rest.
But even with ambient stimuli constantly running in the background, there is an ultimate boundary condition that rigorously stress tests this entire philosophy. We have to look at neurodivergent brain architecture, specifically ADHD.
This is where the model experiences a critical systemic failure. The entire framework rests heavily on what I call the consistency assumption. He equates compounding habits to a financial bank account. Interest only accumulates if you leave the money in the account, day after day.
But for a brain with ADHD, dopamine dysregulation is the defining feature.
Exactly. I mean, the behavioral bank account is frequently and involuntarily emptied by immediate impulses. The consistency assumption completely shatters.
And the concept of identity votes, which is supposed to be deeply empowering, actually backfires dramatically here.
It becomes dangerous.
For a neurotypical person, missing a habit once is a minor mistake. But for someone with ADHD, focusing heavily on identity votes triggers a severe shame spiral. A 3-day lapse creates a permanent negative identity. They do not think, I missed my habit. They think, my identity is a failure.
We must completely refactor the model into an accessibility script. You cannot rely on internal cues. You must externalize your memory entirely. You need rigid commitment devices that physically prevent failure.
Like an outlet timer cutting the Wi-Fi at 10 p.m.
Yes. You must bypass the brain's negotiation phase entirely. Second, we must short-circuit the reward system. Long-term compounding means absolutely nothing to a brain that is actively starving for dopamine. The reward must be right now.
Immediate, tangible feedback and heavy social accountability. For a neurodivergent brain, the expectation of a specific gym buddy waiting for them will override internal friction every single time. Vulnerabilities patched, shifting from the stress test to the catalyst.
We have dissected the modern mechanics and exposed the structural vulnerabilities. Now we must integrate this into a sustainable cultural framework.
I want to playfully introduce a Sanskrit strategy here. Forgive the phonetics, but let us look at sadhana. In plain English, sadhana translates directly to a disciplined, dedicated pursuit. It is the deliberate architecture of a daily system.
Your linguistic latency aside, the underlying logic is structurally sound. Sadhana is the historical realization of prioritizing systems over goals. It is the creation of stable state environments. It turns conscious, exhausting effort into automatic, neural background processes. Plain English translation, it is the automation of discipline.
We can connect that concept directly to Clear's idea of identity change by looking at samskaras. In plain English, these are mental grooves. They are the psychological impressions left behind by our past actions, the literal identity habits categorized thousands of years ago.
From a modern neurobiological perspective, samskaras are simply memory traces. They represent synaptic overwriting in the brain. Every single time you repeat an action, you are carving a permanent physical groove into your biological hardware.
And this brings us to the Jita, focusing specifically on nithya karma. In plain English, this is prioritizing the process over the outcome, focusing entirely on the karma or the action rather than obsessing over the fruit, the final reward.
This ancient concept is actually a brilliant mechanism for the management of dopamine exhaustion.
How so?
Modern ambition is entirely focused on the volatile end reward. We obsess over the promotion or the weight loss. But those rewards are heavily delayed and highly unpredictable. By prioritizing the daily infrastructure over the volatile end reward, the system sustains itself indefinitely. You stop burning out because you stop chasing the artificial dopamine spike.
You focus on the daily action.
Rerun that logic. Prioritizing daily infrastructure over volatile end rewards is the only way to prevent dopamine exhaustion. Cultural code integrated, moving from the catalyst to the final sip.
Let us rapid stack the core takeaways we have audited for you today. First, the mathematical reality of 1% compounding. Atomic changes yield a 37 times improvement over a single year.
Second, environment operates as base code, completely overriding human willpower.
And third, the necessity of external accessibility tools for neurodivergent architecture, replacing identity-based shame spirals with immediate rewards.
And the mandatory ultimate fallback logic that must govern your behavioral architecture moving forward is this systems always override goals. Goals are simply neutral destinations. Systems are the mechanical vehicles that move you across the terrain.
So, we leave you with a final reflection to carry into your day. If you are purely a product of your environment, who would you be tomorrow?
Theory always requires application.
Agreed. I am committing to Clear's 2-minute rule tonight. I will radically scale down my reading habit to just 2 minutes. And to utilize the ready state, I am leaving my book open on my desk right now, reducing the friction to 0.
Acknowledged. Just do not spill the syrup on the pages.
Very funny.
Entropy is default. Build systems.
Until the next cup, stay inspired and systematic. This was Beyond the Book from The Catalyst and the Cup.
The best part of going beyond the book is the hidden magic when you take a look. Yeah, read between the lines and go beyond what book defines. Beyond the book, beyond the book, beyond the book.